More action now from the Tenant Tax Summit in London, and I'm joined by co-claimant to Steve Bolton, that is Chris Cooper. And Chris, fantastic event here today, got off to a flying start. You were on stage. When you thought about instigating a judicial review against Clause 24, did you imagine yourself on stage in front of 600 landlords?
No, not at all. And like I said on stage, if I'd imagined that contacting Steve would result in me being up there in front of a few hundred people, which is something I've never done before, it's completely out of my comfort zone, then, well, I said I'd probably have kept the idea to myself, but of course I wouldn't, because I felt so strongly about this outrageous legislation.
Indeed, and let's track back to when you first heard about Clause 24, because as a landlord you realised straight away that it was going to have a devastating impact on your business, didn't you?
Well, do you know, actually I didn't. I was doing a lot of sailing at the time, and when I first heard about it I put it on my to-do list to have a look at, and I took the statements that were made by the government at face value. I trusted it. So there were two that stick in my mind. One, it would only affect the wealthiest landlords, so I thought, that's not me. And the other statement was that it would only affect higher rate taxpayers, and most of my income's taxed in the lower rate tax bracket, so I thought again that didn't apply to me. However, although that statement is technically true, what they failed to state was that it's going to move thousands of landlords from the low rate to the higher rate. In my case, in fact, I'm going to whiz straight through the high rate tax bracket into the additional rate over £100,000 of fictitious income, so I start to lose my personal tax allowance as well.
Indeed, and as you say, thousands of landlords in that predicament. And really, you know, the event here today, it's uniting everybody under one umbrella, isn't it? We've got many different associations, landlord bodies, obviously landlords, but everybody coming together, and I think that's what's making this event so special.
Well, I think that's really important, because landlords, as I'm starting to learn, are quite a disparate group, and they tend to do their own thing and run their own business and mind their own business. And they've got the different landlord associations that represent people, and there seems to be, I don't know, a sense of rivalry. And I think what we need to do to achieve cohesion and unity is, as Steve has mentioned, some sort of property coalition where we bring everyone together towards a common aim. And I think that's what's going to make this powerful.
And I think that will be something that really comes out of today's event, is the kind of springboarding that whole coalition idea of everybody working together for the greater good, which is absolutely fantastic. Now, you work for an airline, and obviously you're very busy doing that, no doubt working shifts, etc.
Yeah.
You've obviously, well, I'm sure you must have donated a great deal of time to this. Has the judicial review kind of taken over your life?
It's completely taken over my life and disrupted my life. In fact, it's kept me far busier than I ever thought it would do. Obviously, I can only spend time on this when I'm not actually working, and so I will get into some far-flung destination like Hong Kong, turn my computer on and realise there's 292 messages or something, emails. And in fact, my last trip was to Baltimore in the USA, back to back, went to Baltimore, back to London, back to Baltimore, and I'd got an email saying the Sunday Times want to interview you. And so that interview took place whilst I was actually in Baltimore in the United States.
We heard this morning that over 1,000 media items and articles about the judicial review, which is absolutely fantastic.
It is amazing, yeah.
It is. And I think you're going to become much better known in the property world as well, because you've also had a fight with Phil Martin, who was recently jailed for 7 years for property fraud. You were one of his creditors. You obviously feel, you know, very passionate about this industry and wanting to make a positive difference.
Yes, I think people like the chap you just mentioned can bring a bad name to the industry. I forget what the saying is, something like it only takes a small minority to ruin it for the majority. But where he was concerned, myself and a few other people, including you, thank you very much, persisted, and justice was eventually served.
And I think that, and the fact that Mark Alexander won the West Bromwich High Court battle only yesterday, perfect timing to really all give us hope that we actually can make a difference, and it can be a battle of kind of David against Goliath, and David can win.
Well, yes, exactly. And I think often people do think that there's no point in taking on a large organisation like the West Brom or the government. But I believe that it can be done if you feel that justice and is on your side, then certainly, and anyone that says it can't be done presumably hasn't spent one small person can't make a difference, has obviously never spent the night in a room with a mosquito.
Yes, I love that saying as well. Anita Roddick, I think
Is that
it
what it
was,
was?
that she
I
said
met
it.
her
Yes, yes, fantastic. So just to finish, you've got landlords' attentions with the Property Tribes camera. What would you like them to do?
Support our cause in any way that they feel they can. Obviously, we're going to need money for the judicial review. It's not going to be cheap, but together, if we raise awareness, there's still so many landlords who seem to be sleepwalking the disaster, completely unaware about this. Every trip that I do with the airline, there's 2 or 3 people on every trip that have 2 or 3 rental properties for their pension, and they just do not know about this. So if we can raise the awareness, spread the word in any which way that you can, and donate to the cause.
Fantastic. Well, again, Chris, on behalf of the landlord community, I'd like to thank you for all your efforts, the time that you've dedicated to creating this event and bringing together the whole Property Tribes under one roof, really to make a positive difference. So thank you very much on behalf of everybody watching this for your input and your contributions.
Thank you, and thanks to everyone that is supporting our campaign.